Name of suggested flag bearer aspirants are making the rounds on both social and mainstream media. As the said aspirants begin to declare their intention, AYV Wake Up Sierra Leone will commence a series to discuss these aspirants and how the individuals candidates plan to succeed and gain the presidency in 2028. Well, in this edition of Wake Up Sierra Leone show, APC flag bearer aspirant lawyer Ady Macauley speaks on his vision for APC party and Sierra Leone in general. Good morning and welcome to the program.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Good morning.
Good morning, viewers and listeners, home and abroad.
So let's lay the foundation. I mean, you've declared your intention to lead the party, right?
I have.
All right, absolutely. Now, you've declared your intention to lead the party at the moment when the party is visibly divided. What conviction do you have to say that, you will unite the party come 2028?
Firstly, let me make this very clear. There isn't any political party in any country that does not have divisions in that party. For example, the SLPP, we can see the various camps emerging. In fact, it has been quite bloody and ruthless in the SLPP. You have the Fatima Bio camp, which is the First Lady's camp, and you have the David Senga camp and other camps. And it has gotten so brutal that at one point, the First Lady referred to some of the ministers who do not, in my opinion, belong to our camp as dogs. Nothing can be more brutal than that. But coming to the APC, I do acknowledge that we do have differences. I will not call them divisions. I'll call them differences in the APC. And we've learned over time since 2018 that the APC as an opposition can only become a formidable bloc and transform itself into a government in waiting if it becomes united. And that is the path that I am pushing through as a candidate aspiring for the leadership of the party and the presidency of the country.
Now, several APC members have either declared or sought to campaigning, because we've had a couple here that have actually declared their intention to run for the flag bearer for the general election. Now, what do you say to concerns that is premature race may deepen factionalism rather than strengthen the party cohesion?
If anyone considers this as premature, then they are not following the trend in the party. It isn't premature. Just like the country, the party has a constitution, and our current constitution, which is the gunnum of the party, is the 2022 constitution. And that constitution provides that the APC must elect its flag bearer candidate 2 years to elections. And if we are having elections in 2028, then 2 years to 2028 is 2026, February. And our party constitution also says that you must have a complete membership register for you to be eligible to vote as a member in the lower level election. You must have been a member of the party for at least 1 year. So if we are having our primary starting in August, it means that from August last year, we must have started our registration process. Hence, we started our registration process then. And if we're having our primaries in August this year, I mean, it is just right that I, as a flag bearer, come out to make sure that I pass on my message to those that are going to be the electorate voting for members of the party that are going to be delegate or super delegate that will vote for us. So I don't think it is premature at all. I think it is bang on time.
Is it right for Ady to come out at this moment? In other words, why Ady Macauley for the APC party?
I believe that leadership is not about title. Leadership is about service people. Leadership is about empathy. And leadership is about strategic thinking. These are the three components of leadership which are lacking today. The Bill government hasn't shown that it is a servant government. It is not working for the people. The Bill government has shown that it is not empathetic to the people of this country. The Bio government has shown that it is not a strategic thinking government. Well, having looked at all of these criteria as I've put them, in my 21 years of service to the people of this country, I realized that I do possess all of these qualities. And now is the opportunity for me to give back to society and the country. And one may ask, well, you can contribute to society without you being the leader. It is true, but that contribution can be so minimal. I have served as Secretary General of the Bar Association, which is then an organization that holds the government accountable. And I have served as a prosecutor of the country and as commissioner of the ACC. In all of those roles, I have served government and I have served the people of this country. But the impact will not be felt. You know, there is a difference between you being the driver and you being the apprentice or a passenger.
At this moment, one will want to know, how will you categorize your stewardship at the Anti-Corruption Commission? Because when one says Ady Macauley, one of the bodies that it will be synonymous to is that of his role at the ACC. How will you categorize your stewardship at the ACC? When in actual fact, we've heard over time, even your current ACC commissioner will say, things seem woeful, taking into account the statistics that have been coming from abroad as opposed to what was happening during the days of the APC.
Okay, so let me give you now, because this is the supposition that you've just narrated is one that is coming from people that are ill-informed of the facts on the ground. And if you want statistics and facts, and I'm going to give them now. You know, since I left the ACC in very controversial circumstances, I have tried to shy away from coming out there to justify the things I have done, because for me, the things you've done, you've got to leave them for people to judge. Right. But you are coming up with this question, and I'm going to tell you what I've done in the country, in the ACC. Firstly, you start talking about statistics and data coming from abroad. Let us start with the MCC. In 2017, the MCC score was 49%. That is the control of corruption. And in 2018, the MCC score was 71%. But let me just give you this. The time frame within which the data is collected and analyzed is from October the previous year to June of the current year. So I was head of the anti-corruption in October 2017, and I was still at the ACC. I left ACC on the 18th of June 2018. Francis Ben Kaifala took over office on the 4th of July 2018. So between October 2017 to June 2018 is the period within which they gathered the data for. And July and August, September is analyzing the data and validating the data. And the report comes out in October 2018. And I usually say to people, the fact that you marry a pregnant woman does not mean you are the one that impregnated them. You met them pregnant, you just married them. So the point I'm trying to make is, Francis Ben Kaifala was commissioner when the results or the scores came out.
Will you say he has been dishonest with the truth?
Let me just, I would not say he's been dishonest with the truth. Probably he has been mistaken. You know, he was new. So I am sure he was not quite au fait with the manner in which these scores are put together, in which analyses are made, and period within which those scores covered. So I'll forgive him for that. So I will not call him dishonest. But the fact is this, that if the Sierra Leone scored 71% in the control of corruption MCC scorecard, it was my stewardship of the ACC that brought that, because the data covered October 2018, to June 2018. So I just want to set that record straight. Now, you've asked me pointed questions about my successes at the ACC. I'm going to start with my successes as a prosecutor. I had almost 100% conviction rate as a prosecutor. Most of the high-profile prosecutions were done by me. And I was the first prosecutor to successfully have a conviction for unexplained wealth. I was the first prosecutor to successfully have a conviction for deceiving the principal, where the ACC can go after 419ers in the street who defraud and manipulate external foreign investors coming into this country. So I have that record. But above and beyond that, as commissioner of the ACC, I started with what I called, there was nothing petty about petty corruption. Flies and tigers approach. What that basically meant was that whether you're big or you're small, I'll come after you if you do something. There was nothing petty about petty corruption. It means that I am not going to categorize corruption in different stages. Take, for example, and I always give this example, if a nurse in a peripheral health unit in a small village is supplied, say, 2,000 anti-malarial tablets for that particular village, and they sell 1,500 of that, and that particular supply was to last for 2 months, and only lasted for, say, 2 weeks. And there are people there who should have had access to those medicines, but could not because someone sold them out. Probably the cost of those anti-malaria medicine is, say, 5–10 million yuans. The money is small, but when someone dies because they do not have access to that, the effect is irreparable. You cannot bring them back to life. So that was what I meant by there was nothing petty about petty corruption. So how did I fight corruption? Not only did I use the deterrence approach, which is prosecutions. I did prosecute a lot of people whilst I was commissioner of the ACC. In fact, I started exams malpractice prosecutions. I started them. But like I said, there are things I did in the ACC. For example, I brought in what we call the Pay No Bribe campaign. I was in this studio several times trying to popularize that campaign. It was something which President Nkrumah called me to his office to say, look, we need to revamp the fight against corruption. And there was this beautiful idea which Joseph Kamar, my predecessor, had started. You know, he had written the concept. And, you know, I have to give credit to him because I'm someone that is quite straight up. He acknowledges other people for doing a good job. So I spoke with President Nkrumah, and we sought funding from DFID, as it were then. And they made a commitment of giving us £4.5 million to do that. So they gave us some money, about 1.5. We started the Pay No Bribe campaign. And it is unfortunate that it is not in operation today. But the Pay No Bribe campaign was a campaign which was geared towards reducing corruption in the service delivery areas. Between 2011 and 2015, there were national corruption surveys which we had done. And they point that 70% of our corruption problems were based on service delivery areas.
I really want to hold you there for a minute because, like you rightfully mentioned, it's, you know, it wasn't something you really wanted to speak on, but I'm glad you did because there has been a lot of comments with regards to, you know, your role as the then ACC commissioner. But let's come back because you seem to have you know, wealth of experience in a lot of things. Let's talk about.
I am an expert in anti-corruption.
Exactly.
Thank you.
Let's look at the aspect of legacy now. How do you plan to position yourself as the next generation leader without erasing some of the contributions that has been made by senior party figures who also have presidential ambitions?
Okay, before I come to that, let me just complete my flow of thought on this.
We're trying to manage the time so at least we can be able to get, you know, enough information from you.
Okay, so let me just finish this. Okay. So I was able to successfully implement the Pay No Bribe campaign, which also helped us in increasing our standing in terms of TI and, MCC. And let me just open you to a secret. The TI surveys is not just based on actual corruption happening in the country. It also includes the steps you take to reduce corruption. All of that helps you in improving your ratings. And because of the Pay No Bribe campaign, which I started in the ACC, I started the online asset declaration at the ACC, which basically allows you as a public servant to be able to declare your assets online, even in your bedroom.
But with all of those things that you implemented, yet we're still faced with corruption.
But there has been an improvement at some point, even though it is declining again, because this government has not done much in the fight against corruption at all. In fact, we hear about corruption every day. Just last week, we hear about the IMF say they're pulling out of Sierra Leone. And I still recall people like Keke Thomas and JJ Safa thumping their chest, proudly telling the people of this country that because of the mismanagement of the previous APC government, IMF has pulled out. Well, we are not hearing them now telling us IMF has pulled out because you have a government that is paying one single contractor, Pavifort, $67 million. That is not just reckless, it is criminal in my opinion, because you have several other domestic contractors who probably they owe 500 million, 600 million. They fail to pay those ones. And what really makes it criminal is there are allegations for now that notwithstanding this money paid, we did not see the roads.
Okay, so come back to my question.
Yes.
Ady, has government been magnanimous in handling the Koidu Holdings saga?
What is really impressive, rather unfortunately, about this government, and in particular the president, is that he appears to adopt a policy of silence when it comes to very serious national matters. We've not had a president directly address this nation about the Koidu holding thing. So when the Koidu holding thing started, I was the only flag bearer that came out. I was on Liberty Television, and I called out the First Lady. I said our intentions might be good in terms of fighting for good conditions of service of Koidu holders workers, but as First Lady, that should not be our job. Leading protests, leading walkouts, and in some ways, or to a very large extent, inciting workers to strike, to engage in industrial action. I said this might cause serious problems for Koidu Holdings, and the rippling effect are quite serious. So what we have today is the First Lady of the country bickering with one of the largest mining companies openly through letters and social medias, to the point where Koidu Holdings and Octare are accusing the First Lady of being very corrupt. And that also raises very serious concerns about how we have handled corruption in the past 7 years. And what has happened now is that Koidu Holding wrote the government to say that they are going to put the company into care and maintenance. They've drawn down on operations. That has caused in NIG to really seize in corner, because Koidu Holdings was importing electricity through WAP. The excess electricity was sent into Koidu town for the people to, that was part of their corporate social responsibility. Now that you've drawn down, there is no longer electricity for the people. And you have about 1,000 workers who have been fired without benefit. Their families are there. And I have not heard since what the First Lady, who instigated and initiated a lot of this, has done for those families. So they have not handled this well. And President Bio, as a president of the country, has really disappointed me with his very loud silence on the matter.
Ady, the capacity you are, of course, calling on Sierra Leoneans to ensure you get is one that comes in with a lot. Taking into account the current state of affairs, because most times the APC has bashed this government as to the fact that the economy is in a worse state. Are you willing, say a very decent man who's had a very fine personality and character over time, are you willing to come and, is it the right time? Are you willing to come in at this particular moment when things are worse? Why can't just allow things to be the way they are and say go your way, Ady?
I am seeking to make the ultimate sacrifice. And I can tell you, history has taught us that leaders emerge during moments of crisis. Sierra Leone is in crisis, and I am that leader that is going to emerge to take Sierra Leone out of that crisis.
Will you be able to fix the long-talked bread and butter issue of Sierra Leone?
Well, I can tell you the economic and social problem of Sierra Leone did not start today. So you're not going to have a golden bullet to solve the problems in one day, to solve the problems in 1 month, to solve the problems in 1 year. But what you can do is you can make a difference from the day you take office by taking certain actions which will make differences in the lives of people. Let us start with EDSA, electricity and power generation in the country. For 3 days, I did not have light in my house at Aberdeen. And this is supposedly a tourist area, which you have a lot of hotels and, restaurants and other places of entertainment. And if they are running their businesses based on their own private generators, then you know how much it will cost them. The running cost will increase. So where is the problem of EDSA? There are two problems that EDSA has. One is capacity problem. And the capacity problem involves the generation of energy, electricity, the distribution of electricity, and the management of the electricity. And the other problem that EDSA has is the affordability side of it. Can the ordinary man afford the cost of electricity in the country? As it is now, you buy electricity at 0.86 cents per kilowatt hour. In Nigeria, it is sold for about 6 to 8 cents per kilowatt hour. Why the huge gap? It's because we still rely on emergency power, which is the car power ship. And emergency power is only there to fill the gap when you have electricity problems. But we cannot have electricity problems for 7 years. Since this government came in, they signed the agreement with car power to provide us electricity. And by the way, for the past 7 years, we've spent about 300 million in terms of debt and already paid fees to car power ship. And one car power ship, based on my investigation, cost about $90 million. So out of the 300 million we've spent in managing the provision of electricity from car power ship, we should have bought at least 3 car power ships, and we still have a change of $30 million to buy fuel oil to generate power in the country. So we have to be serious as a country. So, but coming into EDSA proper, in the short term, I think we do not have a power generation problem. And you may ask me why. At the moment, car power ship can provide you 45 to 50 to 65 megawatts. And by the way, it was the government that asked car power ship to reduce it to 45 megawatts because they cannot pay for the additional 50 megawatts. And also we have the West African power pool, light coming from Guinea, Ivory Coast, and Ghana. So in terms of capacity, WAP and car power can fill in the gap. And this is the raining season. We have Bumbuna between July to November. Bumbuna can give us 45 megawatts. So the real problems we have is management at EDSA. And 2 weeks ago, the whole of EDSA was dissolved and a new management brought in. This was an admission of colossal failure on the part of the Bio government. I mean, they were admitting that we've been very incompetent, because you did not say, I am, removing the DG, I am removing the CFO. The whole team you've removed. It is an acceptance that you have failed. So if we are able to solve the short-term problem, we have to fix the management of EDSA. And I don't think Kande Yunkela will do it. Not at all. He's a man that can come here and give you the very fine explanation. Beautiful, you would want to listen to him till thy kingdom come. But Sierra Leoneans are tired of talking. What Sierra Leoneans want to see is performance on the part of government.
So maybe you might want to answer my question now. The question I asked about how do you intend to be a next generation leader without, not erasing the contributions that, have been played by senior members within the party that have also declared, for the same position.
So basically, I am going to provide a clear, bold, and forward-looking leadership for the party and the country. A leadership that is prepared and ready to solve the problems of today. A leadership that is prepared and ready to take on the unknown problems of tomorrow, because as a leader, you should be in a position to tackle problems that have not yet manifested themselves. So firstly, I will start by emphasizing that unity is the only thing that can bind us together.
And that is united.
And that is one, we are united. What we need now is cohesion, the binding component, just like you're putting some pieces of sticks together. You put the glue, you have all the sticks. All you need to have a complete structure is the glue, and that is the glue that I am ready to put in. And I can tell you I've started that from day one. I am the only flag bearer aspirant that has gone to each and every other flag bearer aspirant, whether it's their office or their homes, to say, look, I am also aspiring for what you are aspiring for. But I am someone that believes in the teaching of the Holy Quran and the Bible, that leadership comes from God through people. So if the lot falls on me, I want you to support me. And if the lot falls on you, count on me that I will support you, because we are not going to bury our heads in the sand like ostriches and don't appreciate the fact that that affected us in 2018, because to a very large extent, Samura did not get the total support of all the other flag bearers like we would want. And that is a mistake we don't want to repeat this time around. And I'm in very good stead and relationship with all the flag bearers. So that is one way of not erasing their contribution. And by the way, all the flag bearers, one way or the other, have contributed to what APT is today in terms of the good things about the party. So I want to say thank you to all of them for that.
There has been a lot of concerns, but one I want to speak on has to do with the repeated challenge towards the credibility of the last election. Now, beyond a legal complaint from the APC, what other democratic reforms do you think you will bring, or would you champion, to ensure to rebuild the public trust?
Whenever we talk about 2023 elections, bad memories do flood back, because I was campaign manager for the APC in the Western area, and I was heavily involved in managing the elections in the Western area, up to the day when the elections results were prematurely announced by Connor of ECSL, who I don't hold in very high esteem at all. And it is not me saying this, it is not you saying this, and it is not just Sierra Leoneans saying that the last elections were stolen. It was a daylight robbery. But even our international partners, the American Embassy, the EU, the Carter Center, and the American Embassy came out, and the international community came out to say that the election results read were completely statistically impossible.
Well, how do you intend to change that narrative? Because some citizens actually feel that the APC still holds on to, what has happened with regards to election results, as to focusing on tangible things now. Let's say, for instance, uniting the party for the election in 2028.
So basically, I'm here to talk about 2020. So I cannot see how I am still holding back to the past.
You're just one member of the party.
Well, I am just one member of the party, but you see the gamut of very senior, credible members of the party that are coming out to aspire for 2028. But there is no way the APC will forget about 2023. There is no way. You know why? Because this country was robbed of the opportunity of having the president they elected. That is one. And secondly, there were quite a lot of people killed in the party office, Nos Mawa, Mituan Mawa, and you have White Boy, who were killed in the party office, cold-blooded. You have people in Bo Pujong that were attacked, like Cecilia, our Bo district women's leader. She housed the party office in her home. Her home was burnt out, and we saw all of the people that went there to set her house on fire. Our people were beaten, stabbed, and driven out of Pujong, Kainao, and the strongholds of the SLPP. So those memories will not go away. We will hold on to them because we want justice for them as well. But going forward, how do you stop what happened the last time happening in 2028? You have to look back at 2023, which is why we will not let go of 2023. What this government did was to engage in structural rigging and actual rigging. Structural rigging is the rigging that takes place before the ballot box. Actual rigging is on the day of the ballot and the announcement of the elections. And what they did with the structural rigging, they started off with the scandalous midterm census. What they basically did was to undercount people in the strongholds of the ABC and increase the numbers in the stronghold of the SLPP. For example, in Kenema, the population of Kenema increased by 25% in 5 years. And when you look at the demography of Kenema since census started in the 60s, in the 50s, there has been a progressive increment or decrease of between +3 - 3%. So in 10 years, you have +3 - 3%. And there was a midterm census in 2020, which is 5 years from the last census. And all of a sudden, in 5 years, the population of Kenema increased by 25%. That is incredulous. But again, in the Western area, they told us the Western area urban has about 800 and something thousand people. Even their own school census shows that you have more school children attending school than the population of the Western area. How is that possible?
Ady Macauley, at this moment, I want to draw our attention to the tripartite recommendations. According to what was said by the US ambassador, implementation of those recommendations, the electoral reforms, was contingent on the fulfillment of the MCC compact was contingent on the implementation of those the recommendations in the tripartite report. Now, the MCC fund is far from being received by the government of Sierra Leone, taking into account the executive orders from President Trump. Not too long ago, the Statistics Sierra Leone did cancel commencement of the census process, and they've postponed it for next year. A couple of days ago, there was a statement from the Minister of Local Government and Community Affairs, so to speak, in regards to the formation of new districts and what have you. As one of the flag bearers aspirants of the APC party, what's your submission to SIM? Is it, of sounding the pulse of the APC to see how weak or strong is the APC at this particular moment to react to things?
let me start by saying that I don't want to agree with you to say that the implementation of the tripartite agreement depends on MCC.
But that was what the U.S. ambassador said. We interviewed.
What the U.S. ambassador said is not part of the tripartite. Look at the tripartite, and there is nowhere in the tripartite that says that the condition
to give the money
to implement
That was what he said.
the tripartite. The point I'm making is that the people that signed that agreement could not have preempted what the ambassador would have said here probably a year or two after they have signed. So what they had in mind then was that we are coming here as patriotic Sierra Leoneans to ensure that the stealing of elections that took place in 2023 does not happen again in the history of this country. So going forward, this is what we are going to do to ensure that it does not repeat itself. So they signed that agreement. So it is not right to say that implementation or abiding by the dictates and conditions and terms of that agreement depends on MCC. Whether MCC is there or not, as a Sierra Leonean that loves the country, that wishes to see Sierra Leone develop, will ensure that what you have signed to in terms of the tripartite agreement will be followed through on. But coming back to your question about the APC, whether or not they are testing the pulse of the APC, they are not testing the pulse of the APC. This government does not have respect for the people of this country. In fact, it does not consider the people of this country. They do not value the people of this country. They do not value their votes, which is why the people of this country will vote, stand in the lines since 5 in the morning to 7, 8 in the evening to vote. You never counted their vote, or what you counted was not what came out of the result you announced. So it means you do not have respect for the people of this country. You're not testing the pulse of the APC. But let me give you this, and I'm making this point, and those that have ears, let them listen. Under the leadership of Ady Macauley, I will make sure that I and my party use every legal means necessary to ensure that the Bio government does not repeat the aberration of 2023 elections.
Ado, would love to hear from you as well, because we had Minkailu here yesterday. He discussed about the creation of the 2 districts and that of the transition of Lungi to a new city. What's your stance on that? I mean,
for me, I always say that when making decisions as a businessman in the office I run, or as when I was at the ACC, head of the ACC, and as I'm aspiring to be the leader of the party and the country, I will be making informed decisions. And what do I mean? I will look at data. Data will inform my decisions. My decisions will be data-driven. The government has not been able to come out to convince us why we need to split Lunge from Port Loko, why we need to split Western area into 3 or 4 other parts. According to their statistics, that is the census of 2020, the population of the Western area reduced. And you know, it is not about the size of the population of the country that determines, of any particular area, that determines whether or not that particular area develops. We are talking about, I listened to the Minister of Local Government, which really doesn't make much sense to me, talking about decentralization. Who has stopped the Minister of Local Government from implementing the decentralization laws? They are already there. They met the decentralization laws. They have failed to implement them. What they are now seeking to do is to further divide the country into smaller administrative units that will increase the burden, the financial burden on government again, because when you divide Freetown into two, you are going to have two mayors. You are going to have two mayors that are going to have two chief administrators, workers, and you're just going to double the wage bill. You're just going to double the expenses. It does not make sense, and the decision to do so is not informed by data. So for me, I am totally against it.
So we were trying to manage the entire conversation because we have tons of messages for you via Facebook and also have sports. But now, let's say beyond party politics, what is lawyer Ady Macauley national vision for Sierra Leone? I mean, what specific sectors would you maybe anchor in your agenda?
So basically, my vision for Sierra Leone is building unity in the country, because as it is now, we are quite divided. My vision for Sierra Leone is creating opportunity for each and every Sierra Leonean to have the opportunity that I have. I want Mami, selling agidi at Bombay Street, to be able to provide for a child to the point where that child will have the opportunity to say, one day, I would want to lead Sierra Leone. And you can only achieve that with a united country that is well managed by a credible leadership. And that is where I come in. When you look at the country, we are doing very poorly in terms of finances, whether micro or macro. You look at our domestic market, it is very, very, very small. The industrial base of Sierra Leone is very, very, very weak. And we are over-reliant on the extractive industry. So what we need to do is to diversify. And the only way you can diversify is to attract direct foreign investment. And the only way you can attract direct foreign investment is, first of all, to make sure the rule of law works. Because people are not going to bring in their millions and billions of dollars to invest in Sierra Leone if they are not satisfied or they do not have the comfort that their property right will be protected. For example, you have the SL mining saga. The government came in, it's a government that thrives on rumors, and rumor that SL mining was owned by, a certain individual, which turned out to be completely baloney. What happened? They attempted to cancel that particular agreement. They went into arbitration. I can tell you Sierra Leone spent between $12 to $17 million on lawyers alone on that particular legal matter, the arbitration in London. And what happened? They came to the realization that they cannot win. They brought back SL Mining to the table, negotiated, and what happened? Had a new contract with SL Mining and asked them to change their name to Manapa Mines. So basically, for me to be able to, the vision I have is to provide a conducive environment for investors to come in and invest their money in Sierra Leone. But come to speak about diversification, I will push on industrialization and production. A country that does not produce is a country that is not ready to develop. And that is what I will push. And for you to be able to be an economy that heavily relies on industry and production, when I talk about industry, I also mean services as well. You have to make sure that you have good roads, you have to make sure you have the energy, and you have to make sure that you have water. Take, for example, do you know how much money tourism will bring for us? Quite a lot of money. But we have all what it takes to make tourism even our mainstay in terms of contribution to the economy, our GDP. But we are not taking the necessary steps. For example, go to how you call it, Lumley Beach, which is one of the touristic areas. Nothing the government has done to make it attractive. And when coming to Sierra Leone as a tourist, you have to pay $25 to enter. You have to pay $25 to exit. Is $50. And you have to pay both a fee of $45 to cross the estuary from Lunge to here. So if you are coming with a family of 5 for holidays for a week, so you have to spend at least $700 from security fees to crossing. And that is huge. That can pay for a single person to leave the UK, to go to the Gambia, hotel, food, plane, everything, for $700 for a week and return to the UK. To the UK. So my vision is to make sure that we make Sierra Leone produce. But for Sierra Leone to be able to be a country that produces goods and services, we have to have the necessary things that I've spoken about. That is energy, good roads, and water, and the very good fiscal policies in place. We do not have fiscal policies in place. And, you know, when you look at the budget, a huge part of that budget is basically on salaries. I mean, I have some data here for you. In 2017, the wage bill was 1.8 trillion, which represented about 40% of GDP. Today, the wage bill is 6.219 trillion. So the government is going to tell you that, well, it's because we've employed more teachers, we've employed more nurses, we've employed more police officers. That may be true, that may not be true. But how much is one nurse earning? When you look at the wage structure of the political appointees of the President Bureau government, which has increased dramatically in the past 7 years. Now you even have a nutritionist for the president. Just the salary of one political appointee will pay the wages of 10 nurses or teachers.
And these are things you hope to continue when elected as president of Sierra Leone.
Well, I will make sure I adopt a very responsible economic policy. And that is, you reevaluate where you think things are not working and you put them right.
Ady Macauley, we want to go for sports. But before we go, a lot of young people have come out in the APC party, I mean, in respect of the flag bearership of the party. Do you see that wave of youthful leadership taking hold within the APC party? In other words, do you believe or do you think your party is in a rightful position to hand over the leadership to, say, a youth within 40, 45, or 50?
So this is a phenomenon that is not only unique to Sierra Leone. When you look globally, the phenomenon of young people taking over leadership of their countries is becoming the order of the day. So it has worked for countries like Senegal, and I see the photos of the Prime Minister of Senegal, Sonko, and President Biya. I believe he is making a visit here. And I would like to see them work together, march together, and see the energy in them. I can tell you that youthfulness does bring in extra energy into the administration of the state. We are far more attuned to the digital age that we are in today. This is an age of technology where you have to act fast in order to arrest certain development in your country. And also, youth are quite bold. I mean, I was appointed commissioner of the ACC at 36, 37, and you see, you know, the strides that I made. And I believe that energy will bring success to the APC party and to the country. And when I talk about the youth, let me just make this very clear. We are not seeking, or I, Ady Macauley, is not seeking to alienate our elders in the party. For me, the vision I have for the APC is a vision of fusion, where the young and the old work side by side together. The reason is this: the wisdom they have, we do not have. The places they've been to, the things they've seen. So we need that continuous guidance along us, the energetic, fast-moving generation, to be able to make sure that we both work together and achieve that singular goal of bringing back the APC to governance in 2028 and ensuring that Sierra Leone develops into a middle-income country.
Are you the strongest among all the contenders we've seen in the APC?
Or I am the strongest.
So at this moment, it's time we allow our audience to have their say on the program. By that, we go to our Facebook page and take some messages and allow our guests in the studios to respond. First from mine is from Tony Scott. He says, Ady Macauley is a man with clear vision to move this country forward. He is fearless, articulate, and blessed with theoretical skills to face the sitting government and deliver State House in the next presidential election.
And mine is from Mark 10. He says, imagine an APC party led by Ady Macauley, someone who speaks the language of tech, innovation, understands the pulse of urban and rural youth, and can craft policies that address youth unemployment, digital inclusion, and education reform. Such leadership doesn't just, I don't know what he was writing, but yeah, I'll skip some of the last.
Another message from mine here is from Tunde, who also says, the easiest path to State House come 2028 is Ady Macauley. Is the face of the opposition APC party. Let's go APC.
Please go ahead. Yes, please.
Fode Mustafa Toure says, coming to power is only possible when laws around elections and EMBs are immediately reformed. This pledge that it will not be repeated is a dream, because the institution will be used against you as they are firmly in the pocket of the president.
And this one is from Lolo. He says, Ady Macauley come across as a highly knowledgeable, but if the APC were to make him their flag bearer, he would likely be the easiest contender for the SLPP to defeat.
Usman Prince Suleiman Kavoni says, I really don't blame some of these politicians. I blame the people of Sierra Leone who don't want to vote for people who are ready to help the country.
Ady Macauley, please note that anything that sounds or looks like you are attacking our guest, I beg you, we're not going to read those messages. I mean, even if you want to channel your concerns, you can do so in the most appropriate or respectable manner. This is from Swissman. I don't know if you've read that, but he says, Ady Macauley, not that we are against you of becoming the president, but my question is, at the time when you were heading the Anti-Corruption Commission, there was so much corruption in the country, which led to the economic misunderstanding between the former president and the current president. If you cannot manage the country Anti-Corruption Commission, what would you do to stop corruption if you become a president? Don't you think you will run the country like a grocery store?
Lolo Gaspini says, Ady, don't you think Samora Kamara might see your actions as a betrayal, especially since you distanced yourself from him during crucial moments, and now you're vying for the presidency yourself?
And Kagwali says, Esquire, Ady Macauley is not only a distinguished legal expert and advocate for justice, but also a passionate champion for women's empowerment in Sierra Leone. Recognizing, have you read that?
No.
Recognizing the critical role women play in nation building, Ady has consistently worked to create opportunities for women to thrive, break barriers, and contribute meaningfully to society. His efforts in these areas reflect his deep commitment to equality, inclusivity, and the belief that empowering women is essential for the progress of Sierra Leone.
Thomas Goja says, we've had many promises from politicians seeking power, but once elected, they often focus only on their party and personal interest. What will you do differently if you become president?
And this is from Parliamentary Press Gallery. Reformation and Reconciliation Forum says, indeed, only the whole truth will reveal itself in the body politics of Sierra Leone. And
Mohamed A. Kamara says, Ady Macauley, an election without results, what would have been your fight for democracy?
A few more that I would take. Nyake says, should we still be talking about the last election? I think we've debated this all night long. Can we focus now on new things, please? Talk about your political ambition.
Continue.
And
I think we have lots of
messages.
We have lots of messages. Lots of messages.
Mine will be
now from mine is from Omega. British Fulau says, listening to Ady Macauley live on AYV television is always a masterclass in clarity, insight, and patriotism. Your calm yet firm voice continues to inspire meaningful dialogue in our nation. Keep shining and speaking truth with grace. I think that's last on my end. Even though someone is asking, Madison says, Samuel, please please tell Ady Macauley that please ensure you
I will just take.
Ensure you're respectful. Yeah. Be respectful. Of course, we're here to ask questions, but again, it's our responsibility to ensure our guests are comfortable and fully protected. It is part of the ethics that guides our job.
I'll just take 2 more questions from my end. One which says, please, Marina, could you ask him about his relationship with former President Dr. Anis Bai Koroma? I'm asking because I have noticed that most of the APC aspirants seem to rely heavily on ABK's support, even though he's no longer in power. Lastly, from my end is from Alfred Santigi Ture on past grievances and reconciliation. He said, 1, you've spoken about the injustice faced by the APC. How does your party plan to promote national healing and unity moving forward? Looking back, what specific lessons has the APC learned from its time in opposition that will shape your leadership style if elected? How can voters be sure that the APC, if returned to power, will not repeat the same mistakes it accuses the current government of making? In light of the political tension, what specific reforms will your administration prioritize to strengthen democracy and protect opposition rights? Lastly, because this person seems to have a pile of questions, what is your plan to engage young people, especially first-time voters, who may feel delusioned by both the ruling and opposition party, and how would you ensure that past political conflicts don't prevent future generations from participating freely in Sierra Leone's democratic processes?
So someone was asking about as to how you hope to address issues of youth and drugs. And lastly, another person was asking as to what was your earning at the ACC.
What were my earnings
at the ACC?
At the ACC, okay. So basically, let me start with the one question that deals with how does APC intend to address the past grievances and to ensure that the things that we are complaining about today do not happen again. And I want viewers to read my lips that the presidency of Ady under the All People's Congress is one that is determined to unite this country. And unity is not a lip service thing. We listen to President Bio talking about unity, forming the Peace Commission and all of that. It's not necessary even to have a Peace Commission in the country to have peace in the country. Because if you have Peace Commission and inequity is still the order of the day, then to what end is the use of the Peace Commission? But this is the point. I, as president, will not personally or through any other person encourage or acquiesce anyone that is going to engage in the politics of revenge and the politics of personal destruction of the opposition. Because the opposition is part of governance. You need them. One thing I have learned from President Buan, and I think one of the only things I will learn from him, is not how to go after the opposition. Because when you focus on the opposition, you lost direction like he has lost direction in this country. When I become president, because I know I'm going to be the next president of this country, the opposition leader will be my co-leader in governance, because you need them. If I am to commission a project which I need national support on, I will allow the leader of the opposition to turn the sword, because you want members of the opposition to believe that they are part of the national development, which is why I will push the creation of a national development plan, which is going to be the primary responsibility of the government and your position to craft.
Is there any possible ways that you can summarize some of the response in just a minute? Because we have another program.
So as for the ACC, I am the shortest serving commissioner ever. So I don't see how I can solve the problems of corruption that have started since independence. But I did my bit. No one can solve the problem of corruption in Sierra Leone. Everyone has to come together to do it. In terms of the youth and the women, when you look at small and medium-sized enterprises in Sierra Leone, it is mostly women that are running those.